Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session on the Sustainable Development Goals for Business Series, and welcome to the seminar itself. And we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And hopefully, you've been at some of the previous sessions as well. And there are further sessions which we'll talk about towards the end. My name is Mark Cummins. I'm the Professor of Finance here at the DCU Business School and also the Director of the Irish Institute of Digital Business. And I'll be your MC for today's talk on SDG 7 as part of our series. And of course, SDG 7 focuses on affordable and clean energy. So our SDG 4B series is a free online seminar that explores the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and how they are impacting businesses. So again, big focus on the business impact and the business application. As I'm sure you're aware, the 17 interlinked SDGs were developed to provide a blueprint to a better and more sustainable future for all. And I think that is more pronounced today than ever before. Today, as I said, we're going to focus on SDG 7, which again looks at affordable and clean energy, which aims to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. We're delighted to be joined by Stephan C. Krabsen of the European Green Cities. Stephan is a development consultant at the European Green Cities and head of Secretariat at the Association of Sustainable Cities and Buildings. Stephan is also a graduate from City Plan and Process at Roskilde University. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Stephan will be discussing the role of EGCs, so the European Green Cities, in achieving SDG 7 and giving insights to some of the very interesting projects that they are involved in there. And in fact, one of the projects that EGC are involved in is a project that we're also involved in, which is named Reno, where the topic of green affordable energy is very pertinent. Now, this is a 4-year Horizon 2020 funded project aimed at reducing the costs and timelines of deep renovation projects, while at the same time increasing energy efficiency, performance, and occupant satisfaction in the EU building stock, which of course is again a very challenging task. And I think there's some very interesting partners, including DCU and EGC, working on this project with some very innovative technologies being proposed and developed. So if you're interested in Reno, so that's RINNO, be sure to check out the social media channels for the project itself, where there's weekly updates and insights into the progress that has been made on the deep renovation technologies. And also there is a newsletter that you can sign up to as well. So before I hand over to Stephan, I just want to mention that, of course, this is an interactive seminar, even though it is virtual, given the current pandemic situation. So again, we're very open to any questions you might have for Stephan as we progress through the talk. So you'll see that there's a Q&A function that will allow you to ask any questions. So if you put your questions there, I'll pick up on those at the end of Stephan's talk. Okay, so again, you'll find the Q&A button at the end of your screen. So again, feel free to use those to put some questions towards Stephan. Okay, so again, I would like to thank Stephan obviously for being here today. We're delighted to host his talk. I'd like to thank you all for taking time to attend. And without any further delay, I'll hand over to Stephan to introduce himself a bit more and to begin his talk. So again, thanks, Stephan.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, and thank you for reaching out and having me today. I'm really delighted to sort of put into practical terms what we are and how we are handling the SDG 7 affordable and clean energy. I have made a theme for today, which is towards zero energy communities. And actually, I would like to sort of I think we would like to add to the SDG 7 is affordable and clean energy for all. But without further ado, I will get this thing to work. And I am from a company called European Green Cities, and we contribute to the development of green cities and buildings in a sustainable Europe. And we are a non-profit business, which is something I will elaborate a bit further on, and which is actually pretty important for our way to work with projects. Because we support citizens that want their city or district to become a green city, hence the name European Green Cities. And we use surplus from previous projects in the development phase of new ones, which is and here comes into perspective the importance of the non-profit part. So when we make money on, or sort of earn an overhead on our hours in one project, we use the surplus from those projects to start new ones. Yes, and I'm going, as I said, to approach this in practical terms and how we deal with it in sort of making the sustainable development goals concrete and sort of tangible to the citizens of Europe. And we've been working with a project called Aveløre, and yeah, you said it was difficult to pronounce Roskilde, Mark, and Aveløre is definitely a bit more difficult to pronounce if you're not Danish. And it's situated just south of Copenhagen in Denmark. And as you can see, it's actually this area you see on the slide down here. I don't know if you can see my mouse. I hope you can. But this is sort of the main part of Aveløre Green City, and up here you have the Aveløre village. And what we've done is sort of start mapping out we were approached by local citizens who wanted to make their city or Aveløre more sustainable. And that was sort of pretty much what they sort of, that vision about that, and they didn't really have enough knowledge to take it any further. So they contacted us and had us helping them sort of envision the idea of Aveløre Green City. And we started to collect these stakeholders. Maybe I should say that it's Aveløre North, Aveløre South, and something called the Big House, and it is actually a big house in Danish standards. These three stakeholders are part of something called the Aveløre Social Housing Company. And then there's the film city, Centropa, if you know Riget, the kingdom maybe from Denmark, is made there. The Aveløre camp, the Aveløre village, the Yellow City it's called, and Hvidovre High School. And the reason I say this is you're not sort of needed to know who these people are, but they are important stakeholders in order to make Aveløre Green City move collectively forward towards a zero energy community. And why do we maybe I should go back and show this one. Why do we sort of go up here and down here? What is the reason for the definition of the area we are working with? And one of the stakeholders I haven't mentioned is the district heating company of Aveløre. And Aveløre Green City is defined, the district is defined by the district that is supplied by Aveløre District Heating Company. That's a long sentence. I realized when I said it. But that's sort of our way to work with this, because it has proven to be a really good idea to have both the supply side and the demand side of the energy within the scope of the project. And what we did in practical terms was that we sat these people down in a steering committee, and the steering committee comprised of Aveløre Social Housing Association, Aveløre Camp, Aveløre Village, the film city, the stakeholders I just mentioned, including Aveløre District Heating Company. One extremely important element of the Aveløre District Heating Company is that it's a cooperative. It is owned by the people who consume heat from the company. And the surplus, if the people or if the company creates a surplus, it just means lower prices on the consumers lower prices on the heating for the consumers. If I'm babbling, you have to let me know in the questions part. It's a bit complex actually, and I think it's a model that's, we have a tradition here in Denmark which makes it quite normal here, but I think it might be a bit unique to Denmark. But that's the main idea, and it's actually the same with the Avedøre Social Housing Association. I need to check the time to see if I. And what we did with the citizens who asked us, and the only way they could formulate this was they wanted sustainability. They wanted Avedøre Green City. They had the name actually, but they didn't really know how to sustainability. They had this vague idea about solar. They couldn't even make out the difference between solar, PV and thermal collectors. Thermal, yeah. To generate heat. So what we did was to sit these people down and create a shared vision with them based on the UN goals. And our perspective, or sort of our ambition, was maybe to work with 2 or 3. But as we progressed during the workshop, which you can see happening here in the picture, we realized that the ambitions of the citizens were outranking us by far. So we're now working with the UN goals 3 to 13, 15, and 17. And what we did was, because the UN goals can get a bit fluffy. It's actually pretty easy to say that you work with UN goals, but how do you sort of turn them into concrete actions and projects that people can relate to and understand? So we made this manual with actions and initiatives based in the local area of Avedøre Green City. And all these initiatives and projects were developed by the citizens of Avedøre Green City and by the steering committee. And then it was communicated to the local area. And that's what we are doing now, actually. In the beginning, and this is actually the first European Green City, we have been, it's sort of a pilot project for us. And in the beginning, it has been pretty much because we had the will to do the citizens and us had the willpower to do this. And now it's getting really exciting because we can feel that the project is sort of growing really fast actually, and we have gotten a lot of different funding to these initiatives that are developed by the citizens. And this is the manual, and in front you see sort of and this is the Sustainable Development Goal 7, which in Danish is bæredygtig energi. Yeah, I'm sorry, and the front page sort of in images tells us what are we working with here. And then we have the concrete projects on page 2. I'm sitting here pointing at the screen. This might be a bad idea. This is on page 2. You see the concrete projects we have developed, and in the background you have the baselines. How do we measure that we've achieved this project with the citizens? And we are always communicating how can we have this Secretariat function for Avedøre Green City, but we always try to sort of push the citizens to do as much as they can themselves, because we need the engagement and the drive from ordinary people and not just people who have their faces into applications to the EU funding programs, because that's, yeah, I'll get back to that. This is a concrete project example. We are having, we need to, and this example is, the idea is to show you why it is a good idea to put different stakeholders of an area, a district down into the same group and coordinate the projects. Because in Avedøre Green City, we need to retrofit 210,000 square meters. And at the same time, the district heating needs to transform their pipes, and it's 850 meters of pipes, and they need to sort of make a hub renovation where they need to exchange the heat pumps, the boilers, heat exchangers, etc. And if we put these and sort of make these two elements talk together and coordinate the initiatives, we will. What we're sort of realizing now is that we can both lower the energy that is consumed, but we can also optimize the way the buildings are retrofitted, and we might not need to retrofit as much as we anticipated, and that makes the tenants really happy, because then the prices on their rent won't escalate. So step one is the optimization of the DH, the district heating system. We're going to change it into a 2-string DH system. It's 1 string now, so it's really not optimal. And we need to, and because we're making a 2-string DH system, we need new radiators and we need new ventilation systems. And then we're also working with solar energy storage and heat pumps. And this will optimally give a 10% reduction in energy use in the area. And remember again, this company is owned by the people who live in the area. It's really important to keep that in mind. Step 2 is the retrofitting, and this is where Reno, which Mark mentioned, will come into, has really been a great help for us with the inspiration, and I'll get back to that. But we're going to the retrofitting project is insulation of the envelope plus windows, and then we have these pretty important elements, smart meters, and when the buildings are retrofitted, we are able to lower the heat from the district heating company from 90 to 60 degrees, which is a pretty steep energy saving you'll get there. It's a third, you'll see, but I actually think that it's exponentially. So the higher the heat goes, the more power you need to heat it up. Yeah, this will create a 40% reduction in energy use. And step 3, and this is the fun thing about the project in reality, is that we've actually already established the energy community. I'll get back to that. And the energy community is handling PV and BIPV, because the thermal solar energy supply is actually handled by the already established cooperative of Avaleur District Heating. And we are striving to create a zero energy community with this energy community. I'll get back to what this means. And the energy cooperative Avaleur is comprised by almost the same stakeholders as Avaleur Green City. There's a huge problem, and I think it's actually a general problem in Denmark. We're really experiencing difficulties with the legislation. I've practiced saying that word. Legislation, yeah. And that is why the district heating company is not allowed to engage in anything else than heating. So that's why we needed to create a new company that is specifically concerned with the electrical elements of the energy. So the Inequality Avaleur, or the energy cooperative Avaleur, will take care of the solar panels, the PV. We've actually just yesterday, I didn't manage to get it into the PowerPoint, but we just made a deal about we're almost making a deal. The energy community of Avaleur will hopefully sort of approve of the establishment of, I think it's 5 charging points in Avaleur Green City, which will have solar panels on top of them to sort of create the incitement for e-mobility in the area. But Energifællesskab Avaleur, or the energy cooperative Avaleur, is, as I mentioned, a cooperative, and it's like the district heating company. It's owned by users and producers. And the really smart thing about this is that it's many different user and producer profiles, which equals into a balanced network. So you know when you have peak hours, and if you only have the same type of buildings, they will have the same patterns and when they use and when they leave the house, or when are they using their electricity. And if you sort of collaborate in creating this balanced network and have these different producer and user profiles, you'll get an optimized network. Yeah. It's the first time I'm having one of these digital webinars, so it's a bit weird not to, with the reactions and stuff. So if I get a little nervous, that's why. And another thing is that it's a democratic, non-profit, and accessible for all from the area. And that's actually, I would like to stress this part, because we are using it in order to sort of create engagement, and to people are actually extremely willing to engage in the transition to a more sustainable society. But it's just in Denmark, at least I might only speak on behalf of my Danish experiences, but it's really difficult to our best experience, one of my favorite examples is that we are trying to create, geothermal heating, which essentially is digging a hole. And it's the legislation just makes it almost impossible for people just to dig a hole and get the energy from the ground. And that's sort of my favorite image on how much the legislation is sort of preventing the normal citizens of Europe to engage in these kind of projects. But this cooperative creates a platform on which you as a private person can enter, and you can put PV on your roof and give it to the cooperative as an asset, and then collect the green electricity that you created yourself in your own household. And you can even sell the surplus and make money and stuff like that. And that's extremely, I think personally that's an extremely important element of getting everybody involved in this transition to a greener and more sustainable society that we need to get in order not to be flooded. And it's as I said, it's an opportunity to produce and consume energy locally. I'll just take the time. And this create a strong community based on the green transition and sustainable energy. That's just what I said. Apparently I made a slide. And to engage and empower citizens in the green transition. So basically, to sort of sum it up, what we do is we approach an area. We hope to we're working with creating a methodology for this, how to develop a green city, and then we would actually like to spread out the idea to Europe and sort of make the company's name European Green Cities to we take it quite literally. We would like to work with different areas across Europe and districts, and sort of based on the initiatives of local citizens, try to create concrete sustainable projects in the areas. And how we do that is that we're mapping and engaging citizens, organizations, the steering committee, institutions, the municipality of Hvidovre is also involved in the project, and other relevant stakeholders in the development of the district towards a shared vision of sustainability. So that's the steering committee, that's the idea of Avedøre Green City, that's the vision I talked about earlier in the presentation. And then we're facilitating, that's a really important aspect of our work, we are facilitating the cooperation between different types of organization and processes, because you have these professionals who are working every day and 37 hours a week with this, and then you have the volunteers, the citizens, the people who are driven by their hearts, and these two kinds of way of engaging into this it needs coordination and also sort of a translation into how can we best getting people to interact. And then we're trying to giving enthusiastic people the right tools and information to help them keep being enthusiastic. And what we mean by that is that we are, when I sit, I've just left a meeting in another project that we're part of with Avedøre Green City called Positiv. and you know it's 13 work packages, and there's like timelines and budgets and tasks, and we need to coordinate and deliverables and stuff like that. And normal citizens is just unable to engage in those kind of projects. So we need to translate these. What do you get out of these projects, and then translate them into how can we use this in Avedøre Green City? How can you benefit from this in your local area? And then there's also this listening to needs, ideas, challenges and stories from the local context, and this understanding of the local context, and sort of really taking seriously what the local citizens are bringing to the table, and sort of trying to elaborate on that, because that in the end it will create a stronger project. And as Mark said, Avedøre Green City, in this case, it's actually the Housing Association of Avedøre and European Green Cities, and the municipality of Hvidovre, I believe, is part of Reno, which is part of the H2020 program. And Reno is this is the sort of the main framework, and augmented intelligence enables stimulating framework for deep energy renovation, delivering occupant-centered innovations. And the building you see on the picture is the building called the Big House. And as I said, in Danish standards, it's big. And we've used the Reno project to really sort of to engage with the citizens or the tenants of the building into how can we make the optimal solution for you, both in terms of the economic perspective, also the technical, how can we plan and design the project, the process of retrofitting the building without disturbing the tenants too much. It's quite impossible not to disturb them, but how can we sort of optimize, how can we design, how can we create these 3D models and stuff like that that will enable us to pick the best, most effective and economic sort of best solutions for this project. Yeah, these are, I think, the overall purpose of Reno is to provide a framework solution that will help accelerate the frequency of deep renovation in the European building stock. You know, to make it easier to pick the sustainable choices, to pick the innovative elements. The intention is to achieve an ambitious annual renovation rate of 3.5%. So it's also speeding up the processes and sort of how can we handle these processes. And in the beginning, the tenants of Storehus was quite reluctant to engage in Reno because they didn't, what is it and what does it mean to make a test apartment, and what you know, will you take it down again? How can we sort of what will we get out of it to sort of put, I think it's 4 apartments we need to sort of reconstruct and test different elements, these innovative elements. And then as time progressed and they realized that the legislation in Denmark, again, sort of prohibited them from engaging in turning this building into or actually making the more sustainable choices. They realized that they could use Reno for optimizing the projects and the ideas that they have for their total renovation, and it's quite a lot actually. It's 33,572.8 square meters of area that needs to be retrofitted, and we hope that Reno will create some solutions that will that we're able to sort of replicate in all of the 496 flats when we're done. So that's the perspective we're working with. And as Mark said, you can read more about Reno at the webpage at www.reno.h2020.eu, and there you can subscribe to the newsletter, and it's also on social media. I think both Twitter and LinkedIn, right, Mark?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and what we're doing in the big house is that we are taking these. We're trying to make a facade modules with integrated ventilation, bio-insulation, insulation, and PV. And we hope to sort of be able to hoist the facade modules onto the building and sort of click them on site. And then we have building integrated RES technologies in the facade, and we have new ventilation systems with heat recovery. It's also in the facade. And then we're also working with the renovation of the DH system, because they need to change the radiators, as I said before. And then we're going to incorporate new smart meters. And we're also working with sort of moduling, making the 3D model. And hopefully we will get the tenants to walk around inside an augmented version of augmented reality version of the big house. We'll see what happens. Well, thank you very much, and you can visit our webpage at greencities.eu if you wish to learn more about us, or you can write me an email. But thank you for the attention. I hope I didn't babble too much.
So, Stephan, no, not at all. Thanks a million for that presentation. Again, really, really interesting and kind of fascinating what you're doing there, and the big house project looks extremely interesting. And as you know, I'm kind of linked in with the Reno project as a fund investigator, so I'm looking forward to working on the project when we're positioned to do so at our side. So there's one or two comments coming in, but I might just start maybe just with some thoughts as I was listening to you speaking there. Now, what's very, very interesting is the cooperative model that you're working off, and there's a few things kind of jump to mind. But there's a kind of comment that's come in here in relation, say, to the Irish context. So I'm kind of intrigued in terms of how it played out in your situation. And I have a few other questions which I might come to in a second. But just the first point would be around how you kind of got the various stakeholders to kind of work together towards this objective, particularly when there may be some vested interests within the situation. So we're kind of thinking here in terms of the Irish context, and this relates to again, the first comment that's come through here, is in the Irish context, the electricity network and the networks generally in terms of energy are held by private or maybe semi-state organizations, or there will be certainly a state and semi-state history to them. So there's a lot of control of the network on the private side. So how do you get them incentivized to play ball, if you want, with the community effort that's being coordinated?
Yeah, we have I think it's the what's in it for me thing. Yeah. So and it's been I think we've been working for like two years with this project. And it's taking quite some time. It's really a balance of not pushing too hard and at the same time pushing hard enough. So it's sort of you need to not get the people who are engaged in this to lose their faith in their idea, and then you basically need a commonly shared idea. And I think that that Avalua Green City is defined by the area of the district heating company, makes the idea of the district as a defined area sort of, I don't know, they're sort of used to think themselves as a unity, maybe. I don't know if that's, and then but it's been a lot. It's a hard process, and especially we've applied for the ELENA program. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's energy local something, and it's actually taken 2 years to get the funding from that program and be able to realize and start communicating and start do the practical work with the projects. So our job has been to keep the people to the fire. Can you say that in English? It might be a Danish sort of, keep the spirits high and always. And then one thing that's a really good idea is the more concrete projects you can make in the area, it's almost before you need something that people can go out there and clap on, the better. Because the problem is actually that people will start asking themselves, what are we doing here? Why are we sitting at this meeting? Why are we together today? And you need to have those answers ready. You need to and if you talk about the idea of renovating the district heating system, and the idea, and that's actually also been hard with these people, even though they should know that they are co-owners of the local district heating company, but it's actually been hard to sort of to make them realize that if they invest in the future of the district heating company, they will economically benefit from it. And at the same time, these people are extremely they really have their heart in the right place, and they have really, delivered a lot to this project. So it's not because they are, it's just people, and people ask themselves, what do I use my time for? I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. No, I think it does. It gives good insights, and I think it's just interesting in terms of that. I suppose the reason for posing the question is that there can be obviously an imbalance in incentives and power between businesses and the people, and trying to manage that is obviously tricky, because in the Irish context, I think the cooperative model is interesting, but I think there would be certain barriers, I would have thought, to kind of a large scale rollout of that approach. Now, obviously, this is, in your context, this is focused in that geographic location. Are there other initiatives in Denmark similar to this, or like how easy do you see it as being able to roll it out across Denmark?
Well, I actually think that it's thinking of an area this way. We have something called in Danish it's called area renew, sort of making deprived areas sort of, and geographically define an area and then work with how can we improve the general condition of this area. But this approach is much more based on the initiative of the citizens. It's actually sort of carried by that, whereas the other projects are more sort of driven by the municipalities actually. Yeah, so that's the main difference, and I think that our way of or the methodology I talked about, I think we don't know yet if it's possible to replicate, but I think so, because you need to. I think that I've been doing this with other kinds of projects, just not with renewable energy, but with other types of projects. And you need to collect the people who are interested in developing these kind of projects, and then they will, if they can see why they are doing it, they will work towards making making it a reality. So that's I think we can do it, but I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, no, and it's very interesting that it's that as you said, it's very much about the people and the communities that are obviously central to all of this. So yeah, that's something that'll be interesting to see as things develop. I just a query that's come through as well, just in relation to the big house that you mentioned. So the question is that a social housed apartment block?
A social what?
A social housed apartment block. Is it kind of social?
Yeah.
Housing? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's in Denmark. It's called the commonly shared sector. And I think it's in other countries that it might be the same as a social housing block. It's not quite the same in Denmark for some reason, but it's yeah, it is. It's not owned by the government or the municipality. It's actually owned by the people who live there. But again, it's sort of this cooperative thoughts that are sort of the basis of that as well. But it is a social housing association.
Okay, okay. But the government and local government would have they're one of the stakeholders in the block itself.
I'm sorry, what again?
The government and local government, they're part of the stakeholders. They're
No.
one of no. Okay.
No, actually not, and that's the difference between you know, the social housing sector in other countries and in Denmark, where they're working closely together, but they are actually separated.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique thing.
Interesting. Okay, so listen, another query has come through. So kind of for a layperson, could you elaborate a bit more on other deep renovation technologies that you've had past successes with?
Other deep renovation technologies I've had successes with. You know, specific renovation technologies, or
yeah, or even maybe some of the, say, maybe even if you look forward, maybe what are maybe some of the most interesting kind of technologies you think are likely to be to come to the fore? Because I know even from our involvement in Reno, there's some very interesting technological solutions being proposed, and well, that have been developed and also that are being proposed.
yeah, well, we're working with someone called Compromet here in Denmark, and also in Ventilate, and they have these really exciting. The idea is to create this facade module, and then have it comprising of both ventilation systems and also solar PV panels. I think that's the Compromet part, and yeah, you know, different elements. And I think the idea of putting it all together and sort of fitting it on site, that's one of the most exciting parts in relation to the big house, because they are really having problems with the tenants being angry when they have to renovate something, and they actually have to renovate a lot because it's an old building. It's yeah, so but I do not have specific knowledge on different technologies, because I'm more of a generalist. I sort of coordinate and communicate the results of the projects more than working directly with technologies. So I have a more sort of broad overview of the technologies.
Yeah, and it's presumably the way that they kind of work together as well as a suite.
Yeah, exactly.
And individual, because they're very technical actually. And that kind of leads into another question I had, was around, again, as you said, the community plays such a key role in this, and the cooperative model is so central to what you're doing. But there is, you mentioned communication, which is one of the very first things you talked about, and actually you mentioned you developed a manual for people to be able to engage with the project. But there's so much complexity around the technologies, like both on the renewable energy side, but also then on the retrofitting side. How do you manage to communicate these kind of complex ideas and technologies to the community such that they can respond and they can understand the decisions that they're making at the cooperative level?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think in our case, it's been providing the information that people can understand, instead of sort of trying to explain something that you know, when people get that 1,000 yard stare in their eyes, and you know, they zoomed out, that's a good time to stop explaining what the technologies are. But my experience is, as long as people are engaged in the project, they are willing to, they are really keen on learning. And if they can see the purpose of integrating a new technology and that it takes, that they understand. Actually, we are actually experiencing that when we have these meetings with technicians and tenants from the local area, the tenants can provide information that are, that they are the gatekeepers too. They know the buildings a lot better than the technicians and the engineers come, and they might have 3D models and plans and drawings and stuff like that, but they don't know sort of the complexity of the buildings themselves. So the tenants can actually have, in many cases, provide ideas and inputs in order to create the best solutions for the buildings.
Very interesting. So it's there's a real kind of two-way transfer of knowledge then between the technical experts.
Exactly. And we're actually trying to level out the sort of, because knowledge is power. And we're also experiencing that some professionals would like it, if you're sitting there in your everyday, and it can actually might get annoying when people ask, could we do it this way, or could we try to do it differently? And then the professionals, in my experience, in some cases, and it can change, it's not all professionals at all, but there can be a tendency to trying to sustain the business as usual, because you go along with your processes, you have your deals, and this is how we used to do it. And then they use the knowledge they have about these projects to sort of shut down the citizens and let them know that, well, do you know anything about this and this and what if this and this happens, and what about insurance and the legal, and then the citizens will go like, oh, okay, I haven't thought about that, maybe we shouldn't do it at all. And we're trying to sort of level out this inequality of power in terms of knowledge between the people, and that's pretty difficult, but it doesn't really take that much time before both parts will realize that they can get a lot out of each other's inputs and mindsets.
Very good. Yeah. So you can see that mutual benefit is key, and once people understand that, this type of model can really work. And I think, going back to our opening comment came through, is there definitely would be challenges in the Irish context, but obviously they're not too dissimilar, I'm sure, from challenges that you have faced there as well. So I think there's a lot that we could learn from these types of projects, and hopefully we can communicate some of that even to the Reno project, for example.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, I'm just checking the questions and answers. So we haven't any further comments that have come through, unless anybody wants to enter on their final comment before we close out. So no, okay. So I think that's it, and I think that's everything covered from our side. So obviously, just to wrap up, Stephan, I'd just like to thank you again for the time you've taken to come today and to present, and it was really insightful and interesting to kind of see what is happening there. And I do think there's a lot that can be learned, as I said, I'm sure across Denmark, but also, as I said, in other countries from what you're doing there. So again, thanks again for the insights, and again, we look forward to continued collaboration on the
Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to participate. I'm sorry, I do not have specific knowledge on the specific technologies, but I'll get back to you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm really appreciating lately just how complex those technologies actually are. So there's no problem at all. But it's just great to see how you're working to kind of get those kind of complex technologies in place, as you're doing.
Exactly. The translation part, to get those complex technologies, to bring them into reality and make people understand what they can, and sort of give them an opportunity to test it out. That's my main focus.
Yeah. And I said, making those things real, because they can look very abstract. Exactly. So listen, it's amazing stuff, and as I said, it's a shame we couldn't get you over to Ireland for this, but I think the virtual presentations are working very well. So again, I'd just like to thank everybody involved in the team here with the IIDB, who have kind of put everything in place for us today. So thanks everybody there. And the last thing I'd just like to say as well is, again, just to thank all the participants who did join us today. I hope you really enjoyed the talk. And again, as I said, hopefully people have already been to some of our previous sessions, but just to bear in mind that the next session is actually next Wednesday, which is the 9th of December, and we're going to focus on SDG 8 in this case, which will look at full and productive employment. And actually that dovetails into another series which we're running as part of the IIDB, through the IIDB in Business School, is a series called Transform Work. So that's actually a week-long event where we're going to have various talks on basically the digital transformation of the workplace. And again, SDG 8 is going to dovetail into that again on the 9th of December at the same time. So again, thanks again to participants. Thanks again, Stephan, for everything you've done here. And again, we look forward to the series that follow after this. That's great. Thanks, everybody.